Did you have the camera on?
Yeah. Look at that. Look at that gold, baby. We got a pig, guys, putting on the feed bag. Nice fish.
No.
We'll measure and get him back. How's it going, everybody? Austin here. In this video, I'm going to cover rod specifics from jigging all the way to trolling. Maybe the lengths I'm using, the actions I use, and then your rod power too, and then all the different applications also used when I walleye fish. And then these are all my personal preferences, and I'm sure a lot of these preferences of mine are what other walleye fishermen are using too. So I'll start with one that I don't do a lot of, and I'm not going to break them out, but my trolling rods. So basically I use anywhere from like an 8-foot to, I've got a couple 9'6" rods too. And that's when I'm trolling lead core, and then I've got braided too. I don't do a lot of trolling. When I fish big lakes like Leech, or if I go to Mille Lacs, I'll do some trolling, try to cover a lot of water. That's basically what you're doing when you're trolling. And if the bite's like, I do a lot of it, or when in the summertime, I'll do a lot more trolling. Obviously, a line counter is a must. You know, there's certain baits, they dive to certain depths. Lead core, I mean, you can really get the bait out there or down there without as much line. You know, you got planer boards too. I don't use planer boards when I'm trolling. Pretty much just long line it, or when I'm using lead core, you don't need as much line out then. But obviously a line clicker is a must too for those setups. And sometimes I'll use my trolling rods, my crankbait ones, when I'm pulling spinners too. If we're fishing really deep or we're trying to cover a lot of water. If I know I'm gonna be doing like a ton of trolling, I'll run my spinners on my crankbait rods too. But yeah, like I said, you know, line counter is a must to know how many feet of line you got out, and then pretty much if your reel has a line counter on it, your baitcaster style reel, it's probably going to have a clicker too. Those clickers are nice too if you're running with the open bail or your drag loose. When that fish strikes, you'll know then that, I mean, when you hear that click, when you got it in your rod holder, when you hear that clicking, you know you got a fish on, or whatever. If you're clicking, you're bouncing bottom too. That's another thing nice, you know. Sometimes we'll run our crankbaits and we'll let them bounce bottom, and you'll see that tip working, or you'll hear a click. You don't usually got to tighten up the drag then. My next kind of way to cover water, and this is probably especially like late summer, really all year long, but late summer, especially this year, we did a lot of this, is our spinner rigs here. We pull a lot of spinner rigs, and I like to use a spinning rod actually. This is a 7 foot medium light. It's a St. Croix Avid X, and basically I like the medium light because medium light extra fast. You know, you can really, when you're running your spinners, you can really feel the bottom with these. When you're tipping the weeds, you're bouncing rocks or bottom. The medium light, you can really feel the bottom with that medium light action. And then this, like I said, this is an extra fast too. So basically with the extra fast, there's not as much load up. So it doesn't take as much for this. See how, I mean, the fish can feel in that, like your last, I think it's like 10 to 15% of your rod. You know, with the extra fast action there, you get a lot faster or more responsive hook set with that extra fast, which is fine. And a lot of times these fish too, when I'm pulling spinners, you know, they'll strike it, or we're fishing like anywhere from like 1 to 2 miles an hour pulling our spinner blades, and a lot of times the fish are just reacting, they're striking real fast. So I mean, they're usually hooking themselves pretty good. But yeah, another thing too with this, like fishing these medium lights too, and like fishing with a longer rod, when I am pulling spinners, I usually don't use anything shorter than 7 foot. But that 7 foot rod too also allows for like a nice like hook set, like a sweeping hook set too. Because you don't, I mean, if you think about it, if you're pulling up on a hook set while you're trolling, you're not I mean, you're just basically just lifting your weight up. You're not really setting the hook, so you need like a long hook set when you're pulling spinners. I would say probably in the summertime, about probably 75% of my fish are caught with spinner rigs here when I'm walleye fishing, pulling spinners, especially in the late summer. My next setup for walleyes is my live bait jigging rod. When I say live bait, I'm talking leeches, minnows. Lengths that I prefer, nothing shorter than 6'6", and then all the way up to 7'6". Medium light too. The reason I like medium light is, especially when I'm fishing with minnows, like right now we'll be fishing with bigger chub minnows or sucker minnows. You can really feel that fish hit the bait, and you know, when you're fishing at the bigger minnow, a lot of times they're not just inhaling that minnow. You're not just gonna set the hook, you know, sometimes you'll feel that, you know, like a thump thump, and you can, you know, instead not so much let line out, but you can let your rod tip into the fish, give them some time to really chew on it. And then once again, with the medium light action, you know, you can kind of pull up on the rod and feel for them, to feel if that fish is there, and then boom, hook set. Again, I'll use a fast, so medium light power, and I'll use a fast or an extra fast. So I believe this is okay, so this is just a fast. So here, as you see, there's a lot more. I'm applying about the same amount of pressure as I did on the last time when I did this for you with my spinner rig rod. So there's a lot. It's like the last like 30% or 30% of the rod tip is bend in there. So with the fast action, you know, they're not going to feel you quite as fast versus with an extra fast, where that rod's a lot more stiffer, the action on the end there. Basically, I do a lot of jig fishing with these setups early in the spring and then late in the fall. It's when I do my most of my live bait jig fishing. Yeah, that's pretty much the gist with this. I'm usually fishing like 1/8 of an ounce all the way up to, this is a 3/8 here with my medium lights. I think that's what this rod, this is a St. Croix Icon. This is a 6'6" medium light. So this one's for 1/8 up to 3/8. So that's basically, I'm always using in that range too when I'm jigging. Another thing too, I will cast, I'll do some pitching. I'll pitch these jigs and I'll do some long casting. But that medium light too, it allows you to kind of just feel along the bottom, or if you're in the weeds, maybe you can feel along in the weeds a lot better. And then when you're kind of working that jig, when you are pitching it, versus let's say if you were using a medium or like a heavier power rod, when you're kind of doing your jigs, then if you're just doing like a bump when you're casting and pitching, when you're retrieving that jig, you know, with a medium power, you're going to be kind of pulling that jig a lot harder, a lot faster, versus with this medium light, you know, if you get it hit or if you feel something, you can kind of just slowly pull your way out of it, and you can just feel a lot more with the medium light. And that's just kind of a personal preference of mine again. I really think that the medium light allows the live bait jigs to be, or live bait jigging to be worked a lot better versus like a medium action. Let's see here. Basically, yeah, that's pretty much everything for my live bait jigging, you know, 6'6" all the way up to 7'6" medium light. That's my live bait jigging setups. And now my next one is my snap jigging. So here, obviously a lot heavier lure. This is a 6'8". This is an action specific rod here. St. Croix Legend Tournament, their snap jig model. So that's all I'm doing with this rod. 6'8" medium action. This one is extra fast. So I fish a lot of the puppet minnows. Basically when I'm snap jigging, that's all I fish is Northland's puppet minnows. I fish it really aggressively. I'll show you a clip here after this, after I explain this rod or this setup, of kind of how I'm pumping these jigs, how I'm working them. The medium power, really, you know, you need a solid hook set and you need fast response. So, you know, you got your extra fast action. It allows for a fast response. A lot of the times these fish are taking this bait when it's on the bottom, or when you go to do your next snap, that fish will be there, and you need a very responsive and a solid power and like a fast, nothing less than a fast action. I would never fish. All my snap jigging rods are extra fast though. I want that, bury those hooks into that fish, and you need to snap hard. You need a solid hook set. It's really important when snap jigging. Another thing too, with snap jigging, and this is really important to me, is having a really light reel. As in, basically any 1000 or 2000 series reel. I use all kinds of brands of reels, but a light reel, because there's going to be a lot of fatigue on your wrist when you're snap jigging. You'll see in this next clip, when you're snapping, you're really aggressive, and it doesn't look like much, but it's a lot of wear, a lot of fatigue on your wrist. So going for a really light rod and a really light reel when snap jigging, that is a must. So in that clip that I just played for you, you can see how important a medium power rod is when snap jigging. It allows the bait to be worked properly, without your rod loading up. As if, let's say if you were fishing with a medium light rod, that rod's gonna load up a lot more when you're snapping, and you might not, your bait presentation might be probably quite a bit more poor versus using a medium action with extra fast, or a medium power, excuse me, with your extra fast or fast action. So yeah, basically that's the gist of snap jigging there. And then hopefully you can see too, the way I'm snapping. I would say on a scale of like aggressive snap jigging to like super, some guys are really aggressive. I would say that's kind of moderate in the middle. I mean, sometimes I'm snapping way harder than that, but I think you can see in that little clip how the fatigue I'd be talking about, an hour of that, even of that snap jigging, you can have a lot of fatigue. So hopefully you can probably guess how important having light equipment is when you are snap jigging. So yeah, that's basically so you're trolling, snap jigging, the spinners, live bait jigging. Now we'll get into live bait rigging. Not jigging, live bait rigging. So the term you probably hear a lot if you're not a walleye fisherman is Lindy rigging. So you'll have your snell, you'll have a walking sinker. Some guys use pencils, sinkers, bullet sinkers even. Some guys use when they're live bait rigging. But basically you'll have a snell anywhere from like 3 to, I've fished with, I think we've used like 8, 9, even 10-foot snells. And you want a long rod, medium light rod, fast or even extra fast works. Long rod as in 7 foot to 8'6". I don't have any 8'6". 8 foot is the biggest I use, and that is a tuned up custom rod. I got 2 of those tuned up custom rods, 8 foot medium light, the Apex Pro custom, and that's a pretty light rod too. They've got minor split grips, and it's a super light rod. They're really sensitive. I mean, I can feel anything on my tuned up customs. It's just awesome. If I'm pulling a walking sinker and I come into a grassy hump or something, if I'm pulling across a grassy hump, I mean, you can just feel everything on the bottom with those rods. I love them. So yeah, 7 to 8 foot medium light, or 7 to 8'6", medium light, extra fast or fast. That longer rod too for live bait rigging. If you're fishing with, let's say, 8 foot snell. I remember when we fished Mille Lacs, when I was younger growing up, we'd fish Mille Lacs and we would end up like standing up on the seats. We had such a long snell, and I only used like a 6.5 or a 7 foot back then. We have to stand on the seats to get the fish netted, and there was 2 people in the boat, so you'd have someone netting the fish. And now, I use a lot longer rod, and I can pretty much do it by myself now because you get a lot more leverage. It makes it a lot easier with those longer snells. And then another thing too, I was talking with spinner rigs, the hook set, it's like a longer hook set. You're not setting the hook up, you're not, when you're setting with a live bait when you're live bait rigging, you go to do your hook set, you're not so much doing an up hook set, it's the sweeping hook set again with that sinker, you know. If you pull up, you're just pulling your sinker up. You're not setting that hook into anything. So again, a sweeping hook set with live bait rigging and with your spinner rigs too. Yeah, that's kind of everything for live bait rigging too. Yeah, I think that covers basically my favorite ways of walleye fishing. My favorite rods specifics for walleye fishing, I should say. And I think I'll drop in the description. I'll drop a link for the tuned up custom rods. Those are probably my more favorite rod now. I just started fishing with them this year, and I really favor those rods over a lot of my other ones. So I'll drop a link for those if you're someone new to walleye fishing or you're not familiar with tuned up custom rods. They've got some great setup, especially for live bait rigging. Their rods do a great job. So yeah, that link will be in the description. And again, if you guys liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. And I really appreciate your time. Hopefully you stuck around this long to watch it. So yeah, thumbs up and hit the subscribe button too. We'll keep the footage coming for you guys. Pretty crappy weather right now. A lot of rain, really cold, highs in the 40s right now this next week. So we really have some fall fishing coming. Haven't been doing a lot of filming while fishing, but I'm hoping maybe next Tuesday, me and my wife, it'll be just me and my wife out in the boat. So we'll try to get some filming for you guys, get some fish caught, get the fish on film, that is, anyways. But yeah, thumbs up and subscribe. Thanks, guys.